Day 168, Fission Bombs. We're going to look in these notes about the politics of fission bombs. Number one, what nations are part of the nuclear club? These are the countries that have nuclear weapons. U.S., Russia, France, UK, or in other words, England, China, Israel, Pakistan, India, North Korea. The most recent ones to be added to this club are Pakistan, India, and North Korea. Israel officially does not have nuclear weapons, but they have hinted a little bit, and most of the other countries believe that they do have nuclear weapons. Number two, it is commonly seen that a benefit of having nuclear weapons is that nobody is going to attack you. They're not going to risk having one of their cities disappear in attacking a nuclear power. Number three, the nuclear triad is a military strategy of the U.S. since World War II. It's to have nuclear weapons able to be delivered by land-based missiles, sub-based missiles, and plane-dropped bombs. The idea was that the Russians could not devise a strategy to knock out or neutralize all three types of weapons, so the U.S. would always have the ability to respond to an attack. Number four, the Cuban Missile Crisis was a time in the early 1960s when the Russians put short-range missiles in Cuba. The U.S. did not like this. One of the main reasons was that they would put missiles within a 45-minute flight time to Washington, D.C., which would probably not be enough time for people to detect missiles coming and to take shelter. So anyway, the U.S. did not like this and blockaded the island nation. Russian ships approached the island and the U.S. threatened them. Some accounts indicate that we were within minutes, literally like within 5 minutes, of attacking the Russians before those ships turned away. There are accounts of another situation where a Russian sub-commander actually ordered his missiles to be launched off the coast of Florida, but a political officer on board convinced him to rescind that order. MAD, M-A-D, stands for Mutually Assured Destruction. MAD theory says that if you start a nuclear exchange, then you're going to be destroyed too. The idea is that you will never be able to knock out all of the nuclear weapons of your opponent. They will always have something left over to shoot back at you. Number seven. The nuclear weapons are rated with units called the kiloton or megaton, which is based on the explosive power of dynamite. So a kiloton is the explosive power of 1,000 tons of dynamite. A megaton is the explosive power of 1,000,000 tons of dynamite. The bombs dropped on Japan in World War II were about 20 kilotons, and this is the size of current bombs made by Pakistan, India, and North Korea. Most bombs held by the U.S. and Russia are fusion bombs, which work on a slightly different process. They are rated at 1/2 of a megaton to 6 megatons. In other words, 500 kilotons to 6,000 kilotons. That will enable you to compare to the Japanese bombs. The growth of weapons was first negotiated repeatedly in the last century with treaties called SALT, Strategic Arms Limitation Treaties. That was to prevent the United States and Russia from expanding their nuclear weapon arsenals too quickly. But even with those SALT agreements, arsenals grew to about 35,000 major weapons for the United States and an equal number about for Russia. Russia actually had a little bit more, and the United States had a little bit less than that. Later treaties were called START, Strategic Arms Reduction Treaties. Because of these treaties, and also just because weapons were getting old and not being replaced, the current U.S. arsenal is about 6,000, and the Russia's also has about 6,000. The nuclear football is a briefcase that contains the secret command codes and procedures for the president to launch a nuclear attack. It goes wherever the president goes. Sometimes you'll see it handcuffed to one of the Secret Service agents. You see that a lot in movies nowadays. Funny, but not so much, recent revelations about the launch codes of nuclear missiles. it turns out that the generals of the military were very concerned about the missile operators being really, really nervous and really, really scared if they ever had to truly launch a weapon. And the generals didn't want these launch people to get too flustered and not be able to type in the right code quickly. And so it turns out they had their password be 0000000. I don't know how many zeros there were, but they were all zeros. That's sort of like having your own personal password be password or 000. That's not a recommended thing. In the middle of the last century, it was recognized that having lots of nations with nuclear weapons would be a dangerous thing. Small conflicts may quickly develop into nuclear exchanges. Therefore, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty was set up to have nations promise not to develop such weapons. Virtually all nuclear nations signed it. As a result, nations would get help in building nuclear power plants. In order to monitor this treaty, the United Nations set up an organization called the IAEA. It stands for the International Atomic Energy Agency. Number 17. North Korea is a recent addition to the nuclear club. They have had a string of conflicts with the U.S. and its allies, and there's still bickering going on. Recently, Iran has been enriching uranium to levels that have worried some people. They say that their work was for peaceful research. Enriched uranium is something that they've been working on then. This is uranium that has a high percentage of atoms with fewer neutrons and therefore a smaller nucleus. And these will fission easily in a bomb. You can make enriched uranium by spinning uranium in machines called centrifuges. The uranium that has extra neutrons is slightly heavier and spins towards the outside of the machine where it's collected. This process needs thousands of very complex machines. And so you can see in the news every once in a while talk about Iran and their enriched uranium. It's died down a little bit in the past few years, but it's still discussed. One of the reasons why it has faded a little bit in the news is that these 5 countries, the United States, UK, France, Germany, and Russia, recently negotiated an agreement with Iran to address the concerns that Iran was trying to make weapons. There is great controversy over this agreement. The United States, I believe, has stepped away from the agreement because it's never been ratified by Congress. It was hoped that this agreement would prevent Iran from having weapons-grade uranium. This is important because other countries, such as Saudi Arabia, have said that they will try to get a nuclear weapon if Iran gets one. A suitcase bomb is a fission bomb small enough to be carried around in a car. In the movies, you'll see that there's actually a suitcase or a briefcase where the bad guys have a bomb that's all nicely stacked in foam molds and such. That's not really what a suitcase bomb is. It's going to be more along the size of perhaps a casket or almost a refrigerator. It has been theorized that terrorists could buy or steal one nation and attack the United States, but I have read that this is very unlikely because the weapons are very technical and need very special maintenance. You can't just put it on the shelf for years and years and then bring it out and blow up a city. A dirty bomb is a bomb that explodes with regular chemicals like dynamite or C4 or some other kind of similar material. This regular kind of explosion is used to spread radioactive material over a large area. The explosion itself would not cause much damage. It is feared that such an explosion would cause an area to be evacuated for a time, maybe a few weeks, cost a huge amount of money to clean up, and cause a large disruption in the economy and spread fear. So the people who are most concerned about terrorists and nuclear weapons, this is the stuff that they're really truly worried about.